The flight attendant barely made eye contact when she told me in a clipped voice, "I'm sorry, sir. First class is full. You'll have to take your assigned seat in economy." I stood there in stunned silence, not because I couldn't sit in the back, but because something deeper, something uglier, was staring me dead in the face. The ticket in my hand clearly said first class. I'd booked it 3 months in advance. I was flying back from a conference in San Francisco, where I had just delivered the keynote address on economic justice in corporate America. The irony wasn't lost on me. Dressed in a sharp, tailored blue suit, briefcase in hand, and calm demeanor, I was exactly the kind of passenger they wanted to parade around in brochures. But something about me didn't fit. Or maybe it fit too well. The woman's eyes flicked past me, her smile returning as she greeted the older white man, right behind me. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Weston. Your seat is just to the left. Can I get you champagne or orange juice?" I heard him laugh as he took the seat that I knew was mine.
Oh.
I turned back to the gate agent. "Excuse me," I said calmly. "There must be a mistake. I have a first-class ticket." She scanned the boarding pass again, glanced at her screen, and her voice lowered an octave. "It appears your seat was reassigned. Sorry for the inconvenience. We'll get you a voucher." Reassigned. A word as clean and impersonal as it was cold. I should have raised my voice. I should have made a scene. But I didn't. I walked past the smirking flight attendant, past the plush seats I'd paid for, and squeezed into seat 26B next to a coughing teenager and a crying baby. I pulled out my phone not to scroll, not to text, but to open the live feed of the cabin camera. Because this wasn't just a flight. This was a test. I always record tests. Let me take you back 14 hours earlier, where this story really begins. It was a Wednesday morning. The HOA board of Westview Lakes had just emailed me their latest compliance notice. My lake cabin, inherited from my grandfather, had apparently violated several aesthetic ordinances, including the color of my deck chairs. I'd lived with their nonsense for years, but this time they went further. They were threatening to tow my car, claiming I wasn't a resident in good standing. Little did they know I owned 3 properties in that neighborhood. And little did they know I wasn't just another homeowner. I was the founder and CEO of one of the top consulting firms on the East Coast. We advise Fortune 500s on crisis management, legal compliance, and ironically diversity inclusion. My assistant Jules called. They just called the tow truck. "Let them," I replied. "I'll be home in 36 hours. That call triggered something deeper. The HOA wasn't just nitpicking paint or chairs. They were getting bolder. It all came down to control. The same kind of control I felt when that flight attendant smirked as I passed by her, back in seat 26B. The plane hit a patch of turbulence. Drink spilled, a toddler screamed, and the man beside me leaned over, breathing loudly through his mouth. I stared ahead. It wasn't the seat I was upset about. It was the message. A young black man, dressed sharply, traveling alone. He didn't belong in their idea of first class. But here's what they didn't know. The airline was one of our newest clients, not 30 minutes after takeoff. I logged on to the in-flight Wi-Fi, messaged the VP of operations from the secure client line. I attached the boarding pass, the timestamped cabin footage, and the audio recording of the gate agent's tone shift. Her response was immediate. "I'm so sorry. This is unacceptable." "Don't say sorry," I replied. "Just make sure the right people see this." And just like that, the wheels were in motion. You ever wonder how fast corporate structures collapse when their own PR is threatened? 12 minutes later, I was tapped on the shoulder. It was the purser this time, a red-haired man with a sweating brow. "Mr. Tate," he said, "we apologize. There's been a serious misunderstanding. We'd like to move you to first class now." I looked him dead in the eye. "We're 40 minutes into the flight. I'm comfortable here," he fumbled. "Please, we'd like to. I'll disembark with the rest of the passengers. That'll be fine." They were rattled. But that wasn't even the worst of it for them, because by the time we landed, the flight crew's names were already being scrubbed from the internal portal. The airline's Diversity and Ethics Committee had been convened for an emergency call. Their flight numbers had been flagged. The flight attendant, suspended pending investigation. But here's where it gets wild. That same HOA? They had no idea I was returning with news that would flip their little kingdom upside down. Jules met me at the airport. They called again, she said, handing me a manila envelope. They think I'm just going to roll over, I said. We got into the car. I turned to her. Are the documents ready? Everything. Property lines. Ownership. The lawsuit. And the media brief? Good, because tomorrow, not only would the HOA president learn who really owns the lakefront stretch they've been trying to control, but she'd also be sitting across from me on a broadcasted town hall, answering questions from the same community. She tried to gatekeep. If you've ever been made to feel small, if you've ever been told your seat, your space, your success doesn't belong to you, watch till the end. Because the ending isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming power. And, for me, that starts with the next sunrise over Westview Lakes. The morning sun hadn't even broken through the trees yet when I stood on the porch of my grandfather's old cabin. A hot mug of coffee in one hand and a folder in the other. This place was my sanctuary. Quiet, still untouched. But now, even. Here, I was being hunted by control freaks with HOA badges and neighborhood bylaws as their weapons. The gravel road crunched under tires. A silver SUV rolled into view, bearing the HOA logo on the side like it was law enforcement. A tall woman in oversized sunglasses stepped out. Karen, real name, Beverly Lancaster. But everyone called her Karen, even her fellow board members, though. Not to her face. That morning, she didn't know I'd flown in overnight. She thought she was delivering a warning notice to a vacant property. Excuse me? I called out before she could tape the envelope to my door. You don't have to tape anything. I'll take it directly. She froze. Mr. Tate, I didn't expect you so soon. Clearly, I said, stepping forward. You've been sending threats while I've been away, so let's not pretend. This is a courtesy visit. Karen took a breath, tried to compose herself. Shh. We've had several complaints. Your property doesn't match the aesthetic your deck chairs, the gravel color, the fencing. You're aware this is a private, maintained community. I'm also aware, I said, handing her a copy of the paperwork in my folder, that this community was built partially on land that belongs to me. This stretch of the lake, the one your HOA claims jurisdiction over. It was deeded to my grandfather in 1957. Your maps are outdated. And the lawyer who approved your territorial claim didn't cross-check the state land records. I did. Her lips parted, a flicker of fear in her eyes, but she quickly masked it with a tight smile. I'm sure this is something we can clear up with the board. No, I interrupted. It'll be cleared up in court. She wasn't used to being challenged, especially not like this. By someone like me. You've used this HOA as a weapon. You've bullied young families, retirees, veterans. But today you picked a fight with someone who can afford to push back, publicly and legally. You think I care about your petty fines and rulebooks? You have no idea what's coming next. She backed off, slowly walking toward her SUV. This will be addressed with the full board. You do that, I said, watching her peel off down the road. I'll see you there. But the story doesn't just end with me serving her legal documents, because while she was scheming to file a counterclaim, something unexpected happened. 3 days before the emergency HOA meeting, a private investigator I'd hired uncovered something about Beverly Lancaster, something big. It turns out Beverly didn't just break HOA code. She fabricated one a year ago. She rewrote a subsection of the HOA charter to ban any home colors outside of approved neutral palettes. But there's no record of that amendment ever being voted on. It was never filed with the county. She slipped it into the handbook, hoping no one would notice. Why? Because 2 families down the street had painted their homes a deep shade of terracotta red. One was a Latino family who ran a small spice shop in town. The other, a widowed black woman and her son, who just graduated with honors. Beverly didn't like how they stood out. Now, do you see the pattern? My flight? My denied seat in first class? It wasn't an isolated act. It was a mirror of the same systemic disrespect that Beverly operated on here in this sleepy lakeside town. It's all connected. The night before the HOA hearing, I sat in the same seat my grandfather used to fall asleep, in old leather, cracked and faded, but sturdy. I closed my eyes and remembered the stories he told me, about how he built this place with his hands, about how the town refused to sell him plumbing parts because he was black, how the bank tried to block his mortgage until he paid cash in full. He taught me something powerful. They'll try to block you from walking through the front door. That's fine. Build your own damn house. The next morning, I didn't walk into the HOA meeting alone. I walked in with my legal team, the original deed, the updated county, maps, and the local news crew I invited to document it all. The board members sat behind a long table, nervous and fidgeting. Cameras rolled. Karen's smile was forced and shaky. "Mr. Tate," she began, "we'd like to resolve this matter peacefully." "You mean quietly," I replied. "But that's not how this ends." Laid the documents out on the table. "This HOA has overstepped its authority. You've targeted minority homeowners, fabricated code amendments, and leveraged your position for personal bias. Today I'm presenting these findings to the county, and tomorrow I'll file for dissolution of this HOA under state law, citing illegal governance practices." Gasps filled the room. One board member dropped his pen. Another buried his head in his hands. Karen stood up, trembling. "You can't do this. You don't speak for the community." I stepped forward. "I'm not speaking for them. I'm standing with them. The community will speak for itself, now that it's no longer afraid." One elderly woman clapped quietly in the back, then a man next to her, then more. Karen's face turned red. She stormed out of the room, but it wasn't just the HOA that fell that day. Remember the flight? That airline didn't just lose a few employees, they triggered a national conversation. After I declined the belated upgrade, the footage I'd captured was shared internally, then leaked externally. News stations picked it up. Prominent day organization contacted me for an interview. Airline CEO called me personally. Policies changed, not because I yelled, but because I refused to sit quietly in the seat they told me I was assigned. Listen, this isn't just about me. It's about every person who's been told they don't belong. Every child who watched their parents get talked down to. Every elder who worked their whole life only to be pushed aside by some board or badge or uniform. This story, it's your story too. We are more than our seats, more than our addresses, more than the assumptions made about us. And to anyone watching this, don't stop at outrage. Claim your power, speak your truth, fight with facts. But never be silent. If you're still here, I want you to know, the ending isn't over yet. Because something beautiful happened after the dust settled, the HOA dissolved. The lake became public again. Families painted their homes, however. The airline invited me to join their new oversight advisory group, but I declined. Instead, I started my own initiative to document travel discrimination across industries. Within a week, we had 300 stories submitted from around the country. Within a month, sponsors people want to speak up, they just need proof they won't. Stand alone. If this hit you, if you've ever been denied your place, share this video, and please stay till the end. The final part will show you exactly what came next. What happens when justice isn't just an idea, but a force. The phone rang just before sunrise. "Are you sitting down?" Jules asked. I sat on the edge of the old porch swing, coffee steaming in my hand, the sound of crickets still fading into the wind. "I'm always sitting down when history changes," I said. She laughed softly, then said, "We got a call. It's from the mayor's office. They want to meet." I raised an eyebrow. "About the HOA?" "No," she said. "About you and something else. Something bigger." Didn't respond. Right away, I just watched as the fog rolled over the surface of the lake. Curling around the dock posts like it knew secrets IDN. 2:20-4 hours earlier, Karen had resigned. The HOA's remaining board members either stepped down or voted to dissolve the governing authority altogether. The HOA was officially dead. No more bogus fines. No more fake amendments. No more weaponized bylaws. But victory, as satisfying as it was, came with a heavy truth. A truth that I hadn't fully let myself face until that moment on the porch. This wasn't just about a denied seat or a power-drunk neighbor. It was about a quiet war. One fought not with fists or fire, but with policy, paper, and perception. And we'd all been living in its crosshairs. The invitation from the mayor was unexpected, but it felt like the world was cracking open just a little. Like the system was tilting, if only for a moment, in the direction of fairness. I met the mayor later that day. She wasn't what I expected. Black, mid-40s, straight shooter. She met me at a small downtown cafe with no cameras, no handlers. I watched your town hall twice, she said. Then I watched that airplane video. I nodded. You didn't raise your voice once, she added, but you shook both rooms. I wasn't trying to shake anyone, I said. Just tell the truth. She stirred her tea. We're considering creating a civilian equity council. Something independent, transparent. We need a lead. I leaned back. You want me? I want someone who doesn't flinch. It wasn't a job offer. It was a challenge, and I took it. But let me tell you something before we move forward, because this next part, it hurts. You ever think you've made it out of the storm only to realize your house is still flooding? That's what happened 3 nights after that meeting. I came home to find my cabin ransacked. Front door, splintered. Drawers pulled out. Photo albums shredded. And on the wall, carved with something sharp and deliberate, was a single word. KNOW. Your place. The sheriff arrived 30 minutes later. He looked shaken. We've had 3 incidents like this in the last 6 months. It's always same MO, always same targets. He meant people like me. They never catch them. Not in towns like this. Not when silence is policy. But this time, I wasn't interested in playing the victim, because the cabin had security footage, while the cameras inside were trashed, the ones outside, hidden in birdhouses and mailbox posts intact. I handed the drives over to Jules the next morning. She knew what to do. By the afternoon, we had a license plate. And here's where it gets dark. The car was registered to Beverly Lancaster's NFUA. 28-year-old contractor who just happened to show up at the town planning office months ago offering his services for beautification projects. Karen had helped him land city contracts. So now it was bigger than HOA pettiness. This was criminal conspiracy, retaliation, and I wasn't just going to press charges. I was going to shine a floodlight on every shadow they had crawled in. We took everything to the state attorney's office, and within 48 hours, an investigation was launched. But while the legal side played out, something else happened. Something I didn't expect. The community showed up first. It was a knock on the cabin door. It was Luis and his wife, owners of the Terracotta Painted home. Karen tried to fine into foreclosure. We brought food, they said, and some folding chairs. You shouldn't have to sit in the ruins alone. Then came the retired teacher from up the hill, then the widow. Then a pair of college kids with hammer and nails. They all showed up, not to spectate, but to help rebuild. By sundown, the cabin wasn't whole again, but it was healing. People sang. Someone played guitar. Someone else read poetry. It turned into something sacred. A man approached me quietly as the fire crackled. Mr. Tate, you don't remember me, he said. But I was on that flight. I looked at him closely. 26C, nodded. I didn't say anything that day. I saw what happened. I saw how they looked at you like you didn't belong. I saw how you stayed calm. I've thought about that every day since. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing, he added. You taught me more in 30 minutes than my job ever did. He handed me a small piece of folded paper. I opened it later. It was a check, a donation, to start something new. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't about a flight or an HOA or even a lake cabin anymore. This was about building something bigger than one man's fight, something that could last, and that's where the idea was born. An organization not just for homeowners or travelers or professionals, but for anyone who had been pushed out, locked out, or talked down to. We called it First Seat because everyone deserves one. And in just 6 weeks, the movement caught fire. The hashtag trended globally. Airline executives reached out not to apologize, but to collaborate. Homeowner associations in 4 states rewrote their charters. One small town in Georgia even named a park after my grandfather. And as for Beverly Lancaster, She's currently facing 4 felony charges, including fraud, conspiracy, and destruction of private property. Her lawyer says she's shocked. Of course she is. People like her never think consequences apply until they do. To every person who's ever been told to stay in your place. Hear me when I say this. Your place is wherever you decide to stand. In the boardroom, in first class, on the lakefront, or in the middle of a field. Building your dream from scratch. They will try to move your seat. They will try to rewrite your rules. They will try to take what you've earned and wrap it in paper with their name on it. But they can't take what's rooted in truth. And that's what this story is built on. If you're still watching, if you've made it this far, don't go yet. Because in the final chapter, you'll see what happens when the people take back the pen. You'll see how one denied seat sparked a nationwide reckoning. And you'll witness how silence, when turned into strategy, becomes unstoppable. Stay with me. The ending will change everything. It's been 6 months since that flight. 6 months since I stood at gate 1 to B, boarding pass in hand, and heard someone tell me I didn't belong. 6 months since a neighborhood tried to erase history and got exposed for it. And now, I'm standing in front of 200 students at my old high school, facing a sea of faces that look like mine, and many that don't. But all of them are looking at me like they want to believe something different than what the world keeps telling them. A teacher introduces me, CEO, community leader, founder of First Seat. But none of those titles matter here. Start with this. You know what they called my grandfather when he bought his first plot of land here? I asked. Silence. A fool. Said no black man needed land that close to the lake. Said he'd never keep it. Said they'd run him out before summer. A few students shifted in their chairs. Well, they didn't. He built a house, built a life, and he passed it on. And when someone tried to erase what he left, I didn't burn anything down. I just told the truth, and the truth did the rest. A girl in the back raises her hand. How do you stay calm when it feels like everything is built to push you out? The room quiets. I pause. And then I say something I've never said before. I don't stay calm. I stay clear. I see heads nod. Clarity doesn't mean you don't feel rage. It means you know what your rage is worth. Mine is worth. The generations that came before me, it's worth every denied seat, every closed door, every mistake that always seems to happen to people who look like us. Then I pause. And sometimes, that clarity means knowing exactly when to sit down and when to stand all the way up. The applause didn't matter. Their eyes did. That spark that pulled toward something real. But let me rewind, because something happened 3 days before this speech. Something that tied every thread together. A letter arrived at the cabin, no return address. It's just my name, written in blocky capital letters. Inside, a note, a photograph, and a key. The note read, "You don't know me, but my father did. He worked on this land back when your grandfather was still fighting to keep it. He said your family was different. Said they paid him fair when no one else would. He kept this key for 40 years. Said it opened the first cabin ever built on this soil. Said if anyone deserved to have it, it was the man who never stopped showing up." The photograph was yellowed, black and white. A younger version of my grandfather shaking hands with a man I didn't recognize. Behind them stood a cabin. Older, smaller, but familiar. The first cabin, the original. And just like that, I realized this wasn't just legacy. It was living history. I drove out the next morning. The address scribbled on the back of the photo led me into the woods, past where the paved road stopped, and there it was, hidden behind vines and thyme. The door creaked open with the key inside. It's dust, silence, and on the mantelpiece, a small wooden sign that read, "Know Your Worth." Sat on the floor and cried, not because I was sad, but because I finally understood all those moments. The plane, the HOA, the attacks, the courtroom, they weren't disconnected battles. They were all reminders that every inch you claim you must protect, and every seat you earn you must honor, even when someone tries to steal it from under you. The mayor called again the next day. "You've started something," she said. "We're seeing ripple effects. Other towns are reaching out. Legislators, civil rights groups. I nodded. It's not just about me anymore, she asked. What do you want to do with this momentum? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked out at the lake. Then I said, I want to give away my seat. She paused. What do you mean? I want to step down from the advisory role and let someone younger step up. Someone who needs that seat more than I do. She was quiet. You're serious? I've never been more serious, I said. Because real power isn't in holding the seat. It's in making sure the door stays. Open behind you, flash forward to last weekend, we held the first seat summit. Over 2,000 people attended. Activists, lawyers, teachers, teenagers, grandmothers, pilots, homeowners. One by one, people came on stage and told their stories. Not because they were victims, but because they were. Witnesses of strength, of systems finally cracking, of communities refusing to be ignored. And then I brought someone special to the stage. A woman in her late 60s, gray hair, eyes like fire. Please. Welcome Mrs. Evelyn Cross. The woman Karen tried to fine into foreclosure. She walked up, slow but steady, and stood beside me as the crowd rose in a standing ovation. She leaned into the mic and said, I didn't have the words. I didn't have the money, but I had something stronger. I had truth, and now I have my home. I have my dignity. I have my neighbor to thank for that. Then she looked at me and whispered, You gave me a seat. I'm going to build a whole table at that moment. How was it? The win. Not the headlines. Not the lawsuits. Not even the airline reform. It was watching someone once silenced speak without fear. So now, as this video ends, I need you to hear me one last time. This story wasn't shared to go viral. It was shared so you could feel less alone. Because what happened to me happens every day, but we don't always see it. On camera, we don't always get to talk back. But every time you stay calm, every time you document, every time you use your story to create change instead of chaos, you win, and we win with you. So if someone's ever tried to make you feel smaller, if you've ever been told your voice was too loud, or your success too much, or your presence out of place, sit in your seat, straighten your back, look them in the eye, and say, I belong here. I've earned this. I'm not going anywhere. Because if they can tear down a man's home for his skin, if they can deny a first-class seat for his suit, if they can call him a threat for simply owning land his family built with blood, then we must become the threat. They're so afraid of, not with violence, but with vision. Not with rage, but with results. You've reached the end of the story, but your story. It's just beginning. So take your seat and never give it back. If this story hit you, don't scroll away. Just comment below. I'll never give my seat back. Share this video with someone who needs to remember their worth. Subscribe for more true stories of power, justice, and redemption. Because you deserve a seat at the table. And if there isn't one, build your own. Thank you for watching. We're just getting started.